You were listening to episode 111 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John, and I'm joined by Ryan.
Hey, everybody, here at the Game Deflators Podcast, we like to talk about games. We've recently picked up games we're currently playing, and we're going Maverick in today's Inflation Deflation Challenge.
So this week, Ryan and I decided to play a little bit of Mega Man X on the Super Nintendo Classic. We're still kind of recording remotely at this point, so playing whatever we can, Ryan. And that was next on the Classic list.
Yeah, we'll get all the way through this little console at some point.
Yeah,
get
at
our
some
full
point,
money's
right?
worth.
So you got to get a TurboGrafx Mini, so that way we can start hitting with those games, dude.
That'd be interesting.
That would be. So this week we got a few different things we're covering. The first one's going to be an article. It's an interview with I think it was IGN, and basically they interviewed Bowser regarding the various Switch models that have been
Doug Bowser, not to be confused with King Koopa.
Yeah, not to be confused with King Koopa. But so they talked to Doug Bowser and what was going on in terms of new Switches and all that, and his comments on that. So we'll talk about that. The biggest problems with Cyberpunk 2077 are people's unrealistic expectations. So we'll go into there's a nice list of expectations on there that we can look into. And then, of course, the devs are reportedly angry with management about the unrealistic deadlines. 8 years? Anybody? 8 years? So that, and then we'll, of course, discuss our thoughts on Mega Man X. So, Ryan, as always, did you have any pickups this week?
No, I really thought about buying Hades, but I think I'm gonna wait till after the holidays are over to do that. Yeah. And then the only thing I played this week was I played around in the snow in Animal Crossing a little bit, made a snowman, caught some snowflakes, tore down all of my Halloween decorations that I put up. Just a little rearranging for the holidays.
Gotcha.
But well, I promise I will get back into Persona this week. Next weekend,
you're killing
me. When I'm back on the podcast to talk to everybody, I'm going to tell everybody I played Persona, and it'll feel real good. And you guys will all be very proud of me.
And just know that you cannot use this as your but your new games resolution in 2021. So you are going to
pull double duty.
Yeah, which, by the way, next week we will be discussing our new games resolution, along with our games that we played this year for our inflation deflation, ones that we like the most. So we got a little research on our hands.
Games of the year.
Yeah, and hopefully I can update our website, by the way, GameDeflators.com. I need to get all of our prior games that we played listed on there for our reviews, and this week I'm off, so I'm probably going to be doing a lot of that. That'll be interesting. Yeah. So, yeah. I think for myself, what did I pick up this week? So this week, GameStop, they might still have it, by the way, for anybody listening when this episode goes live. But GameStop was doing their whole, buy 5 games, $50 or $30 and lower, and it's like 50% off. So I picked up, hopefully, they're complete in box. Otherwise, I'll return as needed. But I've got 2 copies of Viva Pinata coming in. Hopefully one of them has, case and manual. I got The Witcher 2. I forget the version, but it's whatever special edition version that was out. I've already got from a prior GameStop purchase that had like super scratched up discs. I already have the case for that and a manual, so I'm just waiting to get the discs, and hopefully they're in good shape. A copy of, what was the other one? Oh, Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale. Or no, not Baldur's Gate. Forgotten. It's Icewind Dale, and I forgot the other one. Is it Forgotten Realms? I don't remember. But I got that. No, Torment. I think it's Torment. So I got that for the PS4, and then I got something. God, man, I just had the name like in my head. It's an RPG for the PS4, and I've talked about this in the past that you generally want to pick up games when you can, when they're like on the down low in terms of price, and moving into a new generation is a great time to do that. So I'm trying to pick up like as many RPGs and stuff as I can on PS4 while they're still super cheap. And the one that I ordered was Omega Quintet. So I got that one coming in.
Never even heard of that.
Well, that's the thing. Like, some of these are just no-name RPGs. I'm like, well, if I ever want to play it, I can get it now for 17 or really $8, or I can wait until 3 years from now, and I'm like, look, I really want to play it, and it's $40.
Yeah.
So, like, if the opportunity strikes itself to get a game for 50% off, why not? And these deals are great because, like, if you get it and you don't like what you get because the disc is scratched or it doesn't come complete in box, just return it. Like, pretty straightforward. You get your money back. So I got that, and then my copy of Azure Knights on PS4 came in as well. So that was a PS4 exclusive. And then Azure Knights 2, I think, came out on Switch, PS4, and I don't know if it came out on Xbox or not. But the thought process there was exclusive PS4 RPG, the first one out of two, and then looking at Gravity Rush Remastered as well as Gravity Rush 2 and saying, all right, like, the first one is so much more expensive, let me just get the first one of this for now, and then I'll pick up Azure Knights 2 at a later time. So that was that. And then currently playing, my wife and I started to play, it was Wonder Boy Dragon's Trap, or Caught in Dragon's Trap, I forget the title, but I had that on the Switch. It's okay. It's not exactly my favorite. It's cool because they allow you to like transition between retro style and
The
modern version. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So you got like that 16-bit version going for you. It's all right. It's not exactly my favorite, but it was okay. And we got probably about halfway through, and we're like, you know what? It's just not. It's not our cup of tea. Yeah, it just there wasn't much of a hook. Like, you can change like, so there's different characters. So you start off as Wonder Boy, and then you turn into like Lizard Man, and then a mouse, and then there's like an eagle you can turn into. Like, you change into various creatures as you go through boss battles. The game itself wasn't super hard, and the story was in our minds kind of non-existent. So we're like, screw it. Like, we're not going to play it. So we are instead going to start up here maybe tonight or tomorrow. We'll start Dragon's Crown on the PlayStation 3. And I think that's like a 2-person side-scrolling RPG. So it's like 14 hours, I want to say, to beat that one. So we're going to give that a shot here pretty soon.
Yeah, Dragon's Crown. I think I played that on Vita a little bit. I think it was on like PS Plus like a long time ago.
Yeah, I think it was released on Vita, PS3, and they did like a Pro version or something for PS4. Like,
yeah,
Dragon's Crown Pro.
It's like a side-scrolling beat 'em up or something.
Something like that, but with like RPG type elements, I believe.
Yeah,
so I haven't looked too much into
like,
it.
Any of those D&D kind of games like that.
So here's our general process. And anybody listening, that we had an episode, God, what was it? Probably 20 episodes ago or so with the Game Tenants podcast. So we had Jason from Corpse Slug Gaming, and we also had Church from over at Game Grinder, and they joined us. And one of the topics, or it was on their episode, I think, but we had talked with them about like couples and gaming, and the whole process on that. And so a little bit into our process as a couple is generally we kind of flip-flop on who picks the games. So 1 month it's me, 1 month it's her. But what we'll after each game we'll do that. But what we'll generally do is pull like several games off the shelf that we just, to catch our attention. We'll look at them, and then we'll watch some trailers, determine which ones we like. And then we'll also go on to howlongtobeat.com, not a porno site. And we'll determine based on, you're laughing, we'll determine based on the length of time it takes to beat that game, which one we want to dive into. And it honestly, it's worked out really well for the most part. And we'll have our backups. So like, we'll start like one game and say, no, we're not interested. So we had started playing the council on PS4, and she just wasn't having it. Like, it just wasn't her cup of tea. So we moved into Tomb Raider, which was actually just kind of a, let's see if she likes this. And she absolutely loved it. So
you were playing Tomb Raider
cool.
last week, right? So you guys beat that?
We beat that in like 3 or 4 sessions. We played it a lot, dude. Like, we were doing like 4, 6, 8-hour days of Tomb Raider on that game. So it was awesome. And
is that the first Tomb Raider she's ever played?
Yeah.
I'm surprised she didn't make you guys start at the beginning.
Well, it's a reboot, so technically it was the beginning. So we'll be playing Rise of the Tomb Raider next, when it is my turn to pick a game again. I can't wait. Dude, that's so good. It was such a good game. All right. I didn't pack any trivia, but I'm going to
pull up the
Look
handy
up.
dandy short list of trivia that we
Look at
both
this.
have been tapping into at the last second. That same list.
My Google cookies automatically knows which trivia I want to jump into. So
If you guys have any
hopefully
ideas for better trivia, you can always send them to us at the Game Deflators on Instagram and Facebook, at Game Deflators on Twitter. Or no. Yeah,
you
because
got
they
it.
don't like
That's
the.
right. Yeah.
And
then of course you can comment on our podcast episodes, various applications out there, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Podcast Addict, wherever podcasts are found. Leave us a review and leave us a comment. So
yeah, leave us some stars, 5 stars, 6 stars if you can manage.
This would be pretty cool. And let's see. I don't want to give you a number, Ryan. That's my problem. And that one's too easy. And what sucks is you might have already seen some of these too.
Right.
Okay. What world market generates the most revenue in the video game industry?
Gosh, I really want to say China, but I think I'm going to go ahead and go with North America.
Never second guess yourself, sir. It was China.
I know everybody wants that Chinese money.
Yep. Yeah. So it was definitely China, and they have the world's, apparently, according to this trivia, which was it was edited October of 2020, so it's fairly recent. But if that answer is wrong, let us know on social media. All right, dude. Let's jump into that first article. So this one is Nintendo says it's focusing on existing Switch models rather than a potential Switch Pro. This was Wesley LeBlanc at IGN. So, dude, you kick us off on this one.
Okay, so we've been hearing these rumors for a Switch Pro. I mean, we've been talking about it for like at least the last year, if not longer than that.
Hey, if you keep talking about it, it's bound to happen.
Right? I know. Eventually, it'll probably happen. But I think it makes a lot of sense what Bowser says in the article or the interview. I mean, they're doing so well with their existing models right now. There's not really a need to try to go and come up with an upgrade like a mid-gen jump. I think they're trying to extend this current generation out and just keep riding it as long as it lasts. Because, I mean, they're making tons of money. I was looking up some other stuff when I was reading this just to try to get an idea, because I never got a new Nintendo 3DS, but I knew that there were some games that were like exclusive to the new Nintendo 3DS or ran much better on the new Nintendo 3DS than the original. So I could see them, a few years down the road from here, maybe putting out something when they're ready to start pushing games to, run a little bit more demanding, but still be, you don't want to have a giant install base with the Switch. Like, I mean, it's gonna hit, what is it, getting ready to pass like the PS4 or something soon for sales?
I don't know about that. I'll look it up right now, though.
But it's doing tremendous in sales. So if you come up with like a new one that is going to be required for certain games to be on, or like the performance jump is like so much better that it's going to alienate the current install base, that doesn't make a lot of sense once you're hitting these numbers that they're hitting. I mean, we've seen what happened, and we'll get to it more later with Cyberpunk. I mean, they totally threw the current gen under the bus and only were appealing and really working on the newer versions, the higher power console versions of the game to be able to run it all. So you wouldn't want to do that. And Nintendo, I don't think that, looking at their history, all the revisions that they've done on lots of their handhelds, like I would expect more slight differences, like how we got the new Switch last year that has like a better battery, but it's just like, it's a very minor, internal hardware upgrade. It's not like a whole big thing. I would expect to see some stuff like that. Maybe a revision to the Joy-Cons would be nice, so that we don't keep going through all these drift issues, stuff like that. But also, the longer we wait for a new Switch or a Pro model Switch, the cheaper that tech will be and the better jump we'll get. Like, I would rather wait like another 3-4 years to where like we can get something that's substantially better than what we have now. Like I'd like a much nicer screen. You know, I'd like to have a lot better battery life just because I've got the original Switch or whatever.
Yeah, so I would agree with you on a lot of those stances. And to answer your question, by the way, on the actual like life cycle and units sold so far. So as of this week, or really last week, I guess, the PS4 is sitting at 114.4 million units sold, and the Nintendo Switch was sitting at 72.2 million. And of course, the Xbox One sitting in its lowly self at 48.8. And funny enough, Vita sales are still sitting here for some strange reason at 15.5 million. So that shows you how low of a selling console that was, which makes me want to get one more, actually. But yeah, dude, I agree with you. And like Nintendo has always kind of been a generation behind anyways, it seems, since I guess really the GameCube.
Well, Nintendo always
not even
tries
that,
to
like,
not sell at a deficit the way that the other big guys do. Like they throw
Yeah,
so much tech
exactly.
in there they can't really profit, and Nintendo always likes to at least cut even on the consoles, I think.
Yeah, Nintendo's looking at it from a profitability standpoint. Like we could sell X amount of millions of consoles and be behind however much in terms of units sold, but we're going to make, hopefully an equal amount of money, if not more potentially, based off of what we're actually selling, at least in that division of their business. And yeah, I mean, Sony and Microsoft are always taking a loss. They're looking at more of a market share perspective. How much of a market share can we get, and then get the revenue from any video games made and such. So definitely two different approaches for multiple companies here. Nintendo's approach, for hardcore gamers isn't exactly amazing. I mean, like the tech is always behind. So when I look at games that are multi-plat, unless it's cheaper on the Switch, generally I'm going PS4. So I can't tell you how many indie games I would love to buy on Switch, but why would I spend $45 or $40 on an indie game for the Switch when I can buy it for 25 or 30 on the PS4? It makes zero sense to me.
Well,
So
a lot of people like it just for the portability, and that's another thing that I would hate to see go away in like a pro model would be, going the opposite of a Switch Lite and doing like a home console only version of the Switch, which we've heard rumored, and I think would be taking the Switch out of the Switch is the stupidest thing you could do.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a Switch at that point, unless you're switching it from like we talked about in the past. Like if you had a way to kind of be able to mirror it from your Switch onto the TV, like from the Switch itself, versus having to be docked to do it, like kind of like the Wii U.
Yeah,
the Wii U had that ability in a sense, like it was a connected console, but you were able to obviously go into handheld mode and do what you're gonna do. Like you could play a full game in handheld mode on the Wii U as long as you were within distant, like a good distance from the actual console itself. But yeah, I mean, PS4 does have, I think it has portability for like, if you have a Vita, you got portability tied to it. And also, I think you can play on like your phone and your computer and other stuff too, as long as you have it set up the right way.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, I know. I think you can actually. I don't think you have to have the system turned on, if I recall. I think you can play those games via. Like I remember somebody telling me I could play PlayStation 4 games like when I was traveling for work on my PC. As long as I had it set up and had a controller with me, I should be able to play it. So I haven't looked too deep into it, but from what I know, like yeah, you could do a lot of remote play on it. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, so obviously the big news here is Nintendo is always looking towards new advancements in technology and keeping their eye out, as is any company that's in that, like, well, really any company and what they specialize in. So Nintendo's always keeping their eye on the next thing that they can do. But for now, they're sticking with the Switch, and it makes total sense. Why are you going to, obviously try to, move towards something else when you have something that's successful? The old, if it's broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
All right. Our next thing here that we're going to discuss is going to be the biggest problem with Cyberpunk 2077 is people's unrealistic expectations. That's Kirk McNeat, or how did
McKean?
Kirk McKean, and that is at The Gamer. So it's at thegamer.com. I'm going to actually open up this article, and I'll just go through really quick for us.
Yeah, there's a short list on here of suggestions that you can find in like he found these scrolling subreddit for like 10 minutes or so and just kind of put together a list of things that people think should be in Cyberpunk or wish they were in Cyberpunk or prayed that they were in Cyberpunk, dreamed about it since 2013. This is all the stuff people thought that they would be getting.
Yeah, and what's crazy, and I'll comment on another video as well that I saw. It compared GTA 5 to Cyberpunk, and some of the things it showed were like when you do a burnout with like in a car, the tires explode in GTA, or pop, but in Cyberpunk they don't. If you get in the way of somebody in traffic in Cyberpunk, the driver just stays there and will stay forever. Versus GTA, it'll flick you off and go around you. Shooting water and throwing bombs in water. In GTA, you got the element of the splash effect from bullets hitting the water or a bomb exploding in the water, whereas Cyberpunk, you get nothing.
Oh, so really? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, so I saw that recently. So it's like, the amount of time it took to develop this huge RPG. At the same time, there's so many things that that other games have that it's kind of missing in a sense. But, this short, not really a short list, but the list here, some of these really are unrealistic, and then others are kind of like, why didn't you do it?
Yeah, some of these seem very obvious. Like, they should be a staple of this type of game that has this kind of level of quality. You'll see. Go ahead through the list.
Yeah. So life paths should completely change the game. You should be able to play the arcade games, karaoke, and other mini games. Funny enough, Game Grinder actually mentioned that one yesterday. I saw that, that he wished he could do that. Dude, if Shenmue could do arcade games, surely Cyberpunk can. There aren't enough sex workers to sleep with. Really? Okay, some horny gamers apparently. You should be able to play optional BDs, essentially bespoke cutscenes. The entire first 6 months of a game should be playable instead of being a montage. Okay? You should be able to form relationships with the gangs. Your street cred should impact how NPCs talk to you. We're talking about, people bitching about bugs and stuff and how development time was sped up. And some of these things that they want are just ridiculous. Night City should be fully simulated and NPCs should have schedules. That seems fair. A barbershop can change your appearance. I agree with that. That should be something they could have incorporated.
Yeah, there should be no reason to have a game like this where once you make your character, you can't go in and edit them, at all. Haircut, nothing.
Here's another one. Car customization. You should totally be able to customize cars in this. And within limits, obviously. Purchase apartments. You should be able to pay crooked cops off. That seems pretty interesting. The trauma team should revive you in the open world. This one is kind of funny. Fully interactive sex scenes, so sex again. You should be able to get tattoos. That one I agree with. That's customization. NPCs should comment on your genitals. That would offer a level of hilarity, which, by the way, apparently there's a patch where they're removing a significant amount of dildos that are sitting in there. I don't know if you read that article recently. You should be able to call the Delamain taxi service to pick you up. That seems pretty reasonable. And then you should be able to ride trams like the CGI trailer. If you're going to have it in the trailer, looking at you, Naughty Dog, you should probably put it in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a short list. And, dude, to be honest with you, I see it in two ways. You got a developer, or really developers who are crunched for time. Management is giving them these unrealistic deadlines, which we'll get into here in a minute. And then you have fans who have unrealistic expectations. Some of those are stupid. You want NPCs to comment on your genitals. Okay, do you realize the amount of development it takes to make sure that you have all the audio and written text as needed and programming it into all those specific characters just to say your genitals look X size or whatever, or look however they're supposed to look? That's just dumb. The extra sex workers to sleep with, I mean, I can see that as something they can plug in a patch, but why? Why would you want to waste their time on that? Focus on the bugs and realistic aspects that really need to be focused on. And damn it, why are they removing half the dildos? That makes no sense.
Yeah. So in the article, a little bit after that short list, they talk about how The Witcher 3's world was the same. The blacksmith in White Orchard will still be there hammering away when you finish the game. You'll hear the same line of NPC dialogue over and over. Quest givers stand in the same place and wait for you to arrive. I can understand that, that is, kind of a standard thing in games. Not every game's world is dynamic enough, but this is supposed to be the new moving into next gen transition. This isn't The Witcher 3 from 2015. Like, it should be better and bigger and moved beyond those type of things, as they're modernizing. So it's like, we may have had too great of expectations, and they may have been under too great of constraints. But from what I've been hearing from people that have actually played the game, it's just that most of the ideas that are in this game just are half-baked. Like, they started off with like, okay, we'll do some of this, we'll do some of that, and then they just never really pushed those ideas to make them great ideas, or gave them enough, trial and error to work out the bugs, or to push through and find, like, how could this be more fun? How could this be more interactive? Like, I've really heard that there's a deficit of, like, cyberpunk in Cyberpunk. Like, if you can't go out and get a mohawk and a tattoo and get drunk and, throw some rad flames on the side of your car, like, how cyberpunk are you really? You're way behind the times. Like, we're talking systems that have been in place for years in other games, and that's all well and good, but it's not the groundbreaking that this was supposed to be, or that people wanted this to be. And I feel like the developers didn't want it to be like this either. That's real apparent with the backlash that's been happening on the other end.
Well, I mean, if you consider, like, being able to make changes and customizations and such, I mean, we could flip and make customizations in PS3 games and even PS1 games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when we played Ridge Racer 4, for example, we could customize our vehicle and do what we wanted to do to our vehicle because it was developed in such a way that we could do that. If you were able to make those customizations during that period of time, why can't you do customizations like that in current generation? Like, well over 20 years after the fact. So you're right. It seems like a lot of quantity over quality is what kind of came out of this. And gamers are rightfully disappointed, but at the same time, there are some expectations that are unrealistic. And given the sheer amount of bugs and everything that other people are, experiencing, at least on the last gen consoles, some PC from what I've heard, and then some PS5 and Xbox Series X, like, at the end of the day, like, let them focus on the things that need to be focused on to make the game playable, and then enhance the product. And then on top of that, people were bitching to have this game released with no more delays, and it got released, and now everybody's like, oh, there's too many bugs. Okay, well, you wanted it released. That's what you get. And for me and you, two people that don't necessarily get day one games all the time, very rarely do we do, we're just kind of looking at this from the outside saying, okay, cool. Like, everybody else is a guinea pig. They're going to have all these bugs that they're dealing with, and I'll buy the game later.
Yeah, and I've watched a little. I haven't really watched any, like, gameplay stuff, but I've watched, like, a couple things that, like, Digital Foundry came out with. I was just watching a video yesterday showing off, like, all of the ray tracing effects and how different it is with ray tracing on and ray tracing off. Like, with the ray tracing, this looks like a next gen game. Like, it looks absolutely incredible. Like, the next level of just detail that you can see, like, in reflections, and, like, I'm blown away how with just the better lighting engine, it changes so much of the game. It makes it look so much better. And, great for PC players that are able to see all that. But, just throwing a new coat of graphics on stuff is kind of what brought us up from each generation in the past moving forward. Like, there hasn't always been a giant leap in what makes games, deeper or more complex or better or more interesting. But I feel like for something to be next gen now, it's got to be more than just better looking again. Like, that's what's really going to define this generation. Like, that's why I hear people talking all the time, like, for PS5, everybody's so impressed with
the haptic
Astro's
feedback.
Playroom or whatever, the bundle thing that comes with it that just shows off the controller. Like, the level of detail and immersion that you get from having, like, that more interactive experience with the controller, that's the next gen. Not just that games look better, like, the loading times and getting around, what's always been holding consoles back. That's part of the next gen, not just a new shiny coat of paint.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I'm waiting for VR2 to kind of kick it up, because I want that haptic feedback, that VR experience. Like, I want to be fully immersed, and right now that's just not happening. So that's what I'm waiting for out of this gen. All right, so let's look at our next part just to kind of tail in with Cyberpunk here. We've got an article that comes to us from PC Gamer, and this is Tyler Wilde. And his article is Cyberpunk 2077 devs reportedly angry with management about unrealistic deadlines. And yeah, I mean, we've heard this throughout the industry over the last several years, and I mean, it's not uncommon. Like, there's unrealistic deadlines in every shape of work. I could tell you about 4 or 5 unrealistic deadlines that I've received in the last year right off the top of my head for my job. It just happens, and I get it. But at the same time, it sounds like the management teams for CD Projekt Red were really kind of the unrealistic deadlines were there, but they were downplaying it into how unrealistic they were. And definitely want to hear what you have to say on that one after you read that article.
Well, I mean, with all of them trying to downplay the crunch that they were going to experience, and now having to probably crunch even harder to try to salvage this absolute mess that they've made for themselves, like, they've completely shot themselves in the foot. They've completely ruined, like, all of the goodwill and praise and everything. Like, CD Projekt Red was, like, held up as this amazing company that made The Witcher 3, that, like, was coming out in the industry and speaking out against crunch while still participating in it, but still, trying to say that this is not a good thing. This is not what we want to be associated with. And now they've just thrown all that out the window. They're turning around 180 degrees. They're going to crunch for months, and it's not going to be enough to save this game. Like, this game is just marred at launch by all of these problems. And, like, just because they go back and stabilize it and fix the bugs and fix the graphical issues and get, the biggest install base on the original PS4 and Xbox One, like, those people even able to play the game, like, that'll be great. That'll be a good win for them. But it's not going to make the game better. Like, the fact that people are saying that there's, underneath all the bugs, it's just not a super great game or not the best game, like, that's not going to change. And, like, for them to have come out back in January and said that this is, like, a feature complete game, we're just going to spend some more time on it. Like, we all thought, okay, it's done. Now they're going to throw icing on the cake. Now they're going to make it the best thing and really pump it up to be like a new, crazy, incredible experience. And they just lied. They lied to themselves. Yeah. They lied to, you can't lie to the devs, because the devs are the one making the game. They knew that this was not going to happen. And obviously they're not allowed to just tell people that, oh, hey, our bosses are scamming all you. Don't buy our game when it comes out. But, like,
yeah, they want to make their money too.
Yeah. Then they're going to have to go into DLC mode. Like, there's going to be at least, beyond however long that they're going to take to come out with the like, actual next gen versions or patches or whatever they do after they fix the current gen problems. Like, they'll get it optimized for next gen, and that'll all be great. And then we'll have a few years where we're going to get, I'm sure, tons of DLC, but that DLC better be like a home run right off the bat with no issues, no bugs, way deeper mechanics or story. Like, they have an opportunity to put more stuff in here and bring it up over time, which is probably what they were thinking to themselves, because we live in an era of fix it later,
Yeah.
We'll sell them the solutions to these problems later on down the road.
Yeah, we've seen that with Bethesda for many years. We'll get the product in their hands and we'll start working on it as we get out, because we want the money up front, and then we'll keep doing what we do. So,
because 76 is like now kind of a Fallout game. Like, it's actually got NPCs and quests that are interesting.
It came out 2 years ago.
Yeah,
it was like when we first started doing our podcast. So like, that's so long ago at this point. And it was so late into the life cycle, technically, to have a game where it's now playable, and now okay to play and good. Like, we're on the next gen. Like, those servers aren't going to be supported forever, and people are going to move on to the next thing. And what's funny is within the article, my favorite line here from this, and you probably already know which one it is. It says that another developer suggested it was hypocritical to develop a game about corporate exploitation with the help of mandatory overtime.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these developers, like, they've already said that they were given unrealistic deadlines to complete this throughout the entire project. And of course, now you're left with this not crappy, but, a pretty bad product that's buggy and has its issues. And it wasn't launched correctly. So now they're working on patches. They're working on, likely more overtime, more crunch time to get these things worked out correctly. For a corporation, it really just doesn't give a damn about them. So that's what's interesting. And then I've seen a whole lot of comments on various things like, oh, stand by CD Projekt Red. No, like, stand by the developers, not the company that's hiring those developers. Like, these developers are the ones suffering, not management. Management's telling them what to do. And, hey, we need you to put forth 500 hours of work in the next 2 weeks to get this project done. And they don't have the developers necessary to hit those numbers, I'm sure. So it's pretty insane. And I totally feel for the devs on this. And I feel for the people that have purchased this game with these high expectations and now, having the game in their fingertips are just either not enjoying it or wanting returns, as we've seen with both Sony and Microsoft. Basically, Sony taking it off their store and then Microsoft and Sony both offering returns for customers. I don't think Microsoft is as widely known, but I have seen several refunds that have occurred for them.
Yeah, I can't believe like how this spiraled out of control. Like, last week, everything was normal. Everybody was hyped. Like, the future was now. And then it just, like, every day got worse and worse. And, like, finally they pulled it off the store. Like, I couldn't believe that they actually pulled it off the store. But, I mean, it makes sense.
Kick in the groin, dude.
When everybody's asking you for refunds because it's defective, you can't continue to sell it as defective because then people are going to try to take advantage. People are going to buy it, play it, try to return it, and
and I've heard Steam has a policy apparently where, like, if you buy a game, it's like 10 days to return it, but you have to have only played it for X amount of time. Like,
yeah,
you can't just return it, after playing 15, 20 hours or beat a game. Like, it's like 2 hours or something, I want to say. And like a 10-day period or 7-day period. I don't remember. I haven't bought a game off Steam in years. But that's like their return policy, and it makes complete sense. Like, if a developer puts a game out there or, really a company puts a game out there and it's absolute garbage and you spent your good money to play that and it's buggy and it's not good, then yeah, you rightfully deserve a refund for that product. And I think that on the PS4 and Xbox One, you do run into that issue where you had higher expectations for a product and you got that product and it severely under-delivered from what you were expecting. And if that's in masses, then yeah, refunds are appropriate in that area. Like, people saying that's bitching, yeah, sure, people can bitch. They spent their money on a product, and that product for them was not as advertised. So it makes complete sense to be on that side of a fence. Like, if you have a PS5 and you bought Cyberpunk on the PS5, or you have a PC with a high-end graphics card and you haven't had your issues, well then yeah, you're enjoying the game. You got what you were expecting to get. But if you're a PS4 or Xbox One owner and you can't afford those and you put forth good money for a game that is on next gen or current gen and you're playing on an older generation, then yeah, you deserve a refund if it's not meeting expectations. 100%. eBay has policies on their website, doesn't meet description, so you get a refund on it. Why can't we do that with digital copies of games or even used copies? So, well,
I was actually just looking up on price charting to see if this debacle has like really affected the price at all, because I was wondering, like, if everybody's going to be returning their digital versions, how's that going to affect the physical? But I mean, everything looks pretty normal except for some reason it has the new price listed at $177.70 for the PS4 version on here.
Maybe a special edition. I don't know.
No, that's just the standard.
That, what probably happened is somebody listed a special edition as a standard, and then it got sold, and then price charting got screwed up. That happens occasionally. All right, so enough of our soapbox speeches here.
Good luck to anybody out there that, is trying to get your refund or trying to get through the game. Or I think the people that have it the worst are the people who bought it physically, tried to play it, got too upset playing it, and now they're just going to sit on that until the patches come out.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than staring a game in the face that you want to play, but it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to buy it on PC, and I will get it on maybe next summer during a Steam sale when it's like 50% off because nobody's enjoying it.
Right.
And hopefully I have a graphics card by then that is worthy of playing it. All right. Inflation, deflation of the week. This week we played Mega Man X on the Super Nintendo. I used my classic. I think you did as well.
Love it.
And this was developed by Capcom, published by Capcom, and it was released in January of 1994, at least in the US market. And it is an action action platformer, receiving reviews anywhere between 8 to 9 and 10. Or 8 to 9 out of 10. Sorry. So I played a little bit. I played some Mega Man X in the past. Always enjoyable. That game in particular is pretty cool because you have like the different paths on there. Like you have the different stages you can kind of select at any point. And of course, it's a classic game, dude. So the overall blaster, the way that controls is phenomenal in that game. I think that the mechanics are great, the controllers are great, and of course the music in that game is bomb. That music is awesome. Probably one of my favorite soundtracks within that era of gaming. So I definitely enjoyed it from what I played. And I really wish this was one that we could have played together.
Yeah, this is how you take something old and add to it and enhance it and bring it up to the future. Like Mega Man can dash now, he can wall jump. He's got a lot more. I mean, you always had like the different powers, that you get from the Robot Masters, but it's so cool how you can use those powers to like really affect the boss in other ways. Like I think if you have what is it, Boomer Kuwanger, you can like cut off the nose of the trunk off the flame elephant guy. And, depending on which order you do the bosses in, it actually physically changes like the stage for other bosses. Like what the level will be like frozen over, or, the helicarrier will have like crashed into whatever the other level is. I've never gotten all the way through this because I absolutely suck at Mega Man, but having played a little bit of Mega Man here and there throughout the years, because you can't hardly avoid it. Mega Man X like did so much. I mean, if you've never played it, play it, and if you don't have a way to play it, watch the sequelitis that Ego Raptor did on Mega Man X, because he goes into so much depth about like what really makes this a great evolution of a game. Like this is what people wanted Cyberpunk to be compared to The Witcher. If The Witcher was Mega Man, Cyberpunk was supposed to be Mega Man X.
You know what I'd love to see is an open world Mega Man.
Well, I mean, kind of Mega Man Legends.
No, better than that. Like, just, I don't know, like the breadth of like a Fallout or something like that in the Mega Man world. Like Mega Man XT or NXT, I think. That like whole cyber type world that they got going. That's something I would love to see. And you got Mega Man Legends from years ago, but that's or maybe a reboot. Maybe a reboot of Mega Man Legends would be pretty cool for next gen. Because right now we still get like Mega Man games. We get like the side scrolling stuff still. It just doesn't. I don't know.
The last one was pretty well received. At least it did way better than Mighty Number 9 did.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's so I heard. I mean, Mega Man games have been here for years, but the formula has never like truly changed, and that's a series I would really like to see the formula change a little bit and see what they can kind of come up with.
Well, I mean,
for sure.
I've never played, like, there's so many Mega Man things out there. Like, I'm looking at a list here but when we get into pricing, there's so many different ways to play Mega Man X. Like, we played it on the Classic. You could buy, like, it for a bunch of different consoles. It's in different collections and stuff. But, like, on this list, there's games that, like, I've never even heard of. Like, Mega Man Star Force 2 Zerker X Ninja.
Yeah, it's like
Like,
so
what
all
is
over
that
the damn
even?
place. Well, it's just another side-scrolling Mega Man shooter, like action platformer again. Like that's why I say like change the formula up a little bit, give us something new.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I played every single Mega Man and I'm like super knowledgeable about Mega Man. Like I don't think I can name any characters outside of X or Mega Man. Like
Zero?
that's zero. Okay, there you go. Like that's it.
Vile?
That's all. That's all. Nope. Nope.
Sigma?
Nothing. Nope.
Dr. Wowie?
Rings a bell. Like seriously, like I am not a huge Mega Man fan. So I'll sit back and I'll play him every now and then, but I'm playing him for the actual like gameplay component. And after a while, if they all kind of look the same, I'm not going to keep playing them. And I guess you could say the same about Mario, but at least Mario's kind of changed up the formula here and there over the years.
Yeah.
It's a little different. They've added things, and Mega Man has too, but it's, it's not my favorite series. They're good though, from
They're
what I've
tough.
played.
That's the thing that always drove me away from Mega Man was how tough they were. This one
Yeah,
is like a much more accessible, anybody could really pick this one up and have fun with it.
Well, even this one wasn't like extremely difficult. Like I blazed through the first few levels like no problem on this one. Like it wasn't like I might have died like the first go around, like just kind of getting back to using those controls and understanding what's coming up. But after a bit, it's like, all right, cool. Like this is Mega Man X, and it's not too hard. Like it's not like I remember playing like 1 and 2 when I was a kid on my uncle's NES and having the most difficult time trying to play those. This wasn't nearly as hard for me. Maybe it's because it's a Super Nintendo controller, but for me, the experience was a little better than those games.
Well, there's been so many, like, at least just quality of life improvements in Mega Man since the originals. Like, and one thing that I kept finding myself trying to do, I kept trying to duck for some reason. And it's like, you can't. You can only jump over stuff. There's no ducking in this game.
That's the hard part on that game is like trying to actually like jump over things and avoid things because you don't have the duck ability. So there was one particular enemy, at least in the first area, where I was trying to duck and I was like, and the bombs are coming my way. And it's like, you got to just perfectly time this bomb. Otherwise you're getting hit. And then, oh yeah, he throws lasers on the ground that travel too. So you got to try and jump over those in the process while other enemies are coming your way. So yeah, I mean, the games are fairly difficult and some of the mechanics just don't work or should be there and they don't have them. But I guess that's Mega Man, right? So we should probably stop calling things like Nintendo hard and call it Mega Man hard.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I guess brass tacks, dude. So we're looking at a complete in-box copy sitting at $119.23 for the Super Nintendo, and that is actually the peak, and it's actually trending up. And then a loose copy is sitting at $23.90 right now. That peaked at $48.33 back in December of 2014, and for some strange reason, that's also trending up.
Yeah, this game's on the rise right now. There's so many, like I was saying, I've got the price charting open with, like, I just searched for Mega Man X, so I'm not sure how many of these are actually, like, I don't know if Mega Man X is actually in Mega Man Maverick Hunter X. I think that's the PSP remake that you can also play as, like, Vile, and that's got some cool stuff. There's, it looks like the cheapest version that you could realistically get would be the Mega Man X collection for PS2. You could get that loose for $8.45. And
I sold a couple for like $10 complete.
Yeah, and then the PAL Super Nintendo version is $176.80. So that's pretty up there. But there's so many better ways that you can get this game. Like the Mega Man X Legacy Collection 1 and 2 on Switch, you can get that complete in box for $19. And that has more than just the first game. It's got this like cool boss rush mode where you fight two bosses from like either the same game or different games or whatever. They throw you combinations of bosses and you get to pick which powers you want to bring into the fight, and you try to like get through like all these different bosses that way. Like it's just such a well-received game. There's tons of ways to play this. I don't think that there's really any need other than, like I always say, if you're a collector and you're going for, like this is your favorite game of all time. Like I know some people, like this is a really big game from their childhood. I can see the $120 for like a nice boxed copy. to be not outrageous for somebody to pay, but there's no reason to pay that. I mean, there's hardly even a reason to pay the $23.90 for the loose copy when there's so many other ways you can play this.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. So, like, for me, this game is definitely inflated, not by much. I mean, so I look at it from a couple areas, right? If you're looking to buy this Mega Man because you want to play Mega Man games and you just got a Super Nintendo and you're buying it specifically to be able to play Mega Man, don't. Like, it's not worth it at that point. If you can get it on the PlayStation 2 for a cheaper price point or a Switch, I guess it depends too. Like, if you don't own a Switch and you want to play this Mega Man and you already have a Super Nintendo, what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could see multiple pathways here, but I would say this game's probably worth $20 in terms of because of it being a cart and because of being an older game and being for the Super Nintendo. $20 seems fair, right? Instead of 23, so it's inflated from that perspective. And then I think it's also inflated, of course, because of the reasons you've mentioned. I can buy it on PS2 for $8 to $10 for, complete in box, $10. I can buy it on Switch brand new in like a boss rush mode with other stuff and have it enhanced on my Switch with the portability, as well as being able to play it in high definition on a big screen or a bigger screen. So that's kind of what kills it for me here. If this game was like only released on the Super Nintendo and maybe had like another version that came out on like the Switch recently and was sitting at like $30-$40, then yeah, I'd say like, yeah, definitely buy it for 23, whatever it is. Right now as it stands though, far too many ways to play it. Far too many.
And that'll hold a game down sometimes. Like when there's just better ways to play. I mean, that's why as a collector, like, you got to really decide how much of your money you want to throw into like an individual passion game versus if you're just trying to like fill your shelf up. Like, I mean, most people aren't just out there buying garbage to throw on their shelves because it's cheap, but there's also not a lot of people that are trying to pay this much for a single game. Like, you really got to be a fan of that game and have a desire to own that game to even really be in the running to want to pay that price. I mean, especially with like Super Nintendo, like how many people even collect like in box? Because it's just always so expensive. And, unlike disc games, you don't need the box to keep a cart.
Yeah, I don't know many, like, personally speaking, I don't really know many complete in box collectors. And the main reason, of course, being is why would you buy a complete in box when you can get it for a fifth of the price, if not, like in this case, a sixth of the price, 23 versus 120. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I don't understand why going complete in box. I think for them, it's more of the nostalgic effect, of course. And then obviously there is more of a rarity component with those boxes becoming more scarce over the years and wanting to preserve that history of those games and those boxes. But at the same time, it's just so damn expensive. If you're wanting to collect the play games and you just want to like expand, yeah, like the $20 isn't a big deal. If you're looking to collect and just kind of have like this at-home museum in a sense, then yeah, I guess 120 is not too bad either. So, but it sounds like we're both on the deflated side of this. So we'll of course need to mark that as deflated or inflated. Sorry, kind of messing up our own things. It's crazy, crazy week. We got to figure out what we're doing next week. I know that. Do you want to record in person next week?
Yeah, we should be able to do that.
Okay. So if we record in person next week, we'll do a non-classic game. Well, we could do a TurboGrafx game. So, and that's a classic. So maybe we could do a TurboGrafx game. We'll figure it out for next week. But for now, this has been episode 111 of Game Deflators Podcast. If you're hearing us on one of those awesome podcast applications out there, such as Podbean or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, definitely give us a like over on Twitter at Game Deflators and Instagram or Facebook at The Game Deflators. And we hope to see you there. My name is John.
I'm Ryan.
And thanks for listening.